Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate your presence and the ability to share my story. Growing up as a child, very difficult life. I had an alcoholic father, came from the Korean War, very physical, very mental, abusive. I've witnessed a lot of things that children shouldn't witness, so we came through a lot, 3 of us children, coming into this. And so we had to carry a lot and change our lives. And I went through 2 marriages myself, trying to find myself and realize who I am. And as I grew with this, I ran to the animals and I ran to nature, for that's where I stayed. I would stay out with my horse at night. I would live with the cows, go sleep with them, and I enjoyed that. It was really something that I really enjoyed to do, because I knew I was nurtured and cared for in all ways, and so it was something big for me. And but in other ways, socially, it was very difficult. That's the era of be seen but not heard, and I think a lot of us have experienced that growing up at my age, because that was something that was kind of in the mentality of that time. And so I find that very, it's not conforming today at all. I love the children today who just, they're asking the questions, they're coming out with it, they're going, why? They're just really in your face confronting you, and I think that's so important today to really get. And we didn't have that opportunity because it was, it was a punishing act if we did. So, where am I going to go with this? As I grew up and I was in my second marriage, and I was really having turbulence. We were really having hard times, and I've always been stable in my heart, and I've always been committed to everything I've done. I've had this high responsibility, and so I was having a difficult time, and we were in counseling and doing all this stuff, and I said, I'm going to go do a past life regression therapy. Somebody turned me on to this. I was really listening to Wayne Dyer and all the gurus of that time, and Deepak Chopra and all these people, Tony Robbins, and I was really into that. That was becoming my daily intake. And so when I went to see Belinda, we went into some deep trances, and she took me into some lifetimes where I saw my father in every one of these lifetimes. He was not my father, but he was in there as an overseer, we had this contract where he was always over me, abusing, a boss, a slave driver. Kept me, one lifetime I was in the pyramids, and I was a scribe, and I was with a group of scribes, and he was the slave driver, and he kept us underground and not to see the light ever. Our whole life. We died very young, but we were not allowed to see light. Things of this nature came revealing to me, and I went, oh my God, this is like big. For the contract had to be broken, I knew it in this lifetime, and this was part of the work we had to do in one of my early awakenings. When I found out that this was going on, the realization was there that I had to do something. So she said, beware, there's going to be a lot of movement and passing through your body and ideas and thoughts, and I had this dot on my head, this wound, that it was like under skin, and it kept glowing red when I get angry or irritated or frustrated. It would like get red and irritated and get sore and tender. And after this revealing of all these past lives, I was sitting in the hot tub one morning, and that's my place of meditation, I must say. For the water is what we are as well, and it connects us to the Mama Earth, and it actually transmits a lot of energy, and I really get a lot of feedback from all my guides when I'm in the water. I can really think the clearest. And so I was in the water, and I was just seeing this this vision of firewalking. I really wanted to firewalk, and all these guys and gurus are firewalking, and I wanted to see them firewalk. And over in the corner, sitting down in lotus position with a goatee, was my father, and he was pointing at me. He was laughing hysterically at me. Laughing hysterically, and I was like almost getting pissed off in this vision that I was having. But then it just hit me like a brick. He was my best teacher, and it just came to me in this total instant while I was sitting in the hot tub, and I got up out of the water. I knew what I had to do. And the phone rang at that moment. It was Belinda. She says, I feel something's going on. What's happening? Are you okay? You know, because she had a sense of what was going on. We were very connected after that. And I told her, I said, I just had this vision. I got to go forgive my father. Be careful. I says, no, I have to forgive him for myself. I see the clearance. And I told her the story, and she goes, wow, this is a big journey. And I hadn't seen him for 4 years. I stayed away. I was the black sheep. I left everyone.
Where?
And just stayed away in Sonora, up in the Sierras. And so I told my wife at the time, she was livid, why you can't leave now? What the heck are you doing? You're crazy, you're nuts, and all this stuff. And I said, no, I have to do this. And so got in the motorhome, and off I went. And it was just like a matter of hours, and I was already on the road, you know. And the motorhome broke down in Lodi, and my other daughter helped me when she was in Sacramento. And I mean, all these obstacles were in my way getting there, but I got there. And walking in and seeing him, he had a can of paint in his hand, and he was just opening it, and it dropped on the ground and spilled everywhere. He just was like blown away that I walked in the room, in his garage, and I looked at him, and I said, I'm here to forgive you for what has happened to me and what I'm holding. He said, I forgive you too. And I said, no, I don't need that. I forgive you. You will understand someday, but I forgive you. And I turned around, gave him a hug, and I walked away. Went up and saw my mother and did the same thing. And I walked away and I left. And I felt this huge weight just go poof off my shoulders of all these 45 years of carrying this energy, this anger, this frustration, the blaming him for holding me down and making my life this way and that way, and holding him responsible for how I was feeling and thinking. And when that, when the revelation came to me that he was in all these lifetimes, I knew that had to be done to break this spell, this cosmic spell that we all get in, and little pods of people in our families are sometimes very continuous. The same members are always there, lifetime after lifetime, if you really look into that. And I saw many of my members in my family, lifetime after lifetime, that have been in this pushed down, held down position under him. And we all come back because that's a lesson we have to learn and get a hold of. So it was a big lesson for me to get a grasp on that. And so when I did, I got in my motorhome and I'm driving back home and I'm just cruising down the road feeling all this weightlifting and thinking, God, this is powerful. I mean, something really happened. And then I went, oh my God, I married my father. I married my father. Oh. For that's the only pattern I knew. And so I chose these people in my life to come in because that was what familiar. This kind of abuse, this kind of fighting interaction, the energy difference, and all this stuff. And it wasn't, I never had a really chance to figure it out and think about it until that time. And that was really hard for me because we were going through so much and I wanted to just make it work. So when I got back, I had to get enough energy up here because she was, my last wife was very powerful verbally and very, very able to hold me in a really low position, hold me down with words and making me feel very, very small, in my actions. So I had to really build myself up. And I just came back and I was just talking from my heart and I said, I now know what I have to do. I said, I'm dying in this relationship. It's not working. My body's failing me. I'm doing the work. I'm putting out all my energy and I'm not getting anything in return. My body's failing me. And I said, I have to do something about this quickly. And I said, all these years of counseling, I'm going to give it a few more months. Let's do that. And we'll make this thing work. And she was totally livid and angry and wouldn't even hear of it. And so it was like the end. And so that was a lesson too, because she was a great teacher for me as well. As I saw, all the lessons I needed came within a year's time. It was just amazing how all this just congealed and just kind of popped out of me. So I lived in a very celibate way, going through the misery I had to do. I lived in my shop downtown Sebastopol, and I just lived inside the shop. And I just kept saying, I'm not going to blame anybody. I'm taking full responsibility for all things, for I chose that person to come into my life. I chose these things to happen. I chose all of this. Welcome, welcome, come on in. You may have to have the floor.
All right.
There's two chairs, right there. They were there. So I basically, after listening to all these gurus, and I was really becoming very ingrained in the philosophy, and I was studying Buddhism at the time, and because nothing else resonated with me. And so I was really into the anti-war movement, protesting. I was really moving my energy in different directions from where I was as a you can call me a redneck in some sense for coming from the mountains, and all of that energy that I was in. So I really opened up to this spirituality. It was really resonating with me at the time, for this magic was happening inside myself that I didn't quite understand what was going on, but it was really resonating, hearing the people. So I'd go and see Wayne Dyer, and I'd go and see Deepak when he came. I actually sat with both of them and had lengthy talks one-on-one. I really felt that was very, very appealing to me. And it really, I was able to ask the questions I wanted to ask and have a really one-on-one talk, and it was just powerful. And it helped me realize the strength that I had inside, and I had to take full responsibility of every action that I did. And so that was part of going through this, is not blaming anyone at all except myself, for all the actions that I had completed. So my cave, I called it, was my shop, and I lived there, and I only dedicated myself to my daughter at the time, who was living, half and half with me, going through this and trying to keep her, in this, having her feel safe in all these areas was really important to me, for she was the biggest thing in my life at that time. And so I really held on to that strong, and we did so many fun things and created and just went places, and it was really a fun time, and she's really commented on that since then, and I really appreciate those times, for the time that I went deep into my soul. And I feel after you go through a trauma like that, sometimes it's really important to go deep into yourself in a really quiet place and really honor your temple again and love yourself again. Today, I love myself more than I ever have my whole life. I am so proud of who I am and what I've created and my potentiality. I just feel it's unlimited. So I live life a whole lot different than I did then, for sure. But that's after I healed my temple and realized that I'm okay. I went through a human experience in a spiritual way, and it was very difficult. But it was the lesson. Without that, nothing else would have come through.
How old was your daughter at the time?
She was 7, yeah. Yeah, 7, 8, 9, 10, before we moved here, yeah. And it was time to move from that shop at that time. So,
You're lucky you got her. Oh.
I was so lucky because I learned so much from her. Children today, you just took me into another whole realm. For children today are so gifted already in the sense of the energy that's coming from the world and gifting them. And if you're open to listening and to being on their level all the time, you will learn so much about nature, about all things. And she really opened my heart. Being in those fairyland realms that she was in all those years until she reached like age 7 or 8, that was the most magical time, for I had forgotten. I didn't get a chance to experience that as a child, for I was in a different environment that didn't allow that. And so being there was like reliving my childhood again with her, and it was like so magical. And it was just the journeys we would have would be just into the forest, into the ocean at 6 in the morning and hunting for rocks and stones, and it was just like, it was so magical, and we just loved it. So those times I cherish forever. So after I healed myself and I ended up, settling down and calming my inner soul, knowing that I'm okay, things will work out and everything's going fine. I was doing a lot of sound and sound healing, and I was going to Novato every Wednesday to Jan Sircone's sound healing, and I was very influential there and working, and she counted on me being there to create sound and help out and heal people. It was just magical. I really found that opening for me in that area. And then one day, she said, I'm going to France and Randy can't go, and that was her partner at the time. And she goes, I need a male energy there, and I see you as being that person that has to go. And I said, no, I'm sorry, can't do it, because that's my old patterns. That's my old patterns of just saying, no, I can't afford it, it's not the right time, I have my daughter responsibility, and all this other stuff came up for me. But the timing was actually really right, because I was out of work at that time. And I had a little bit of savings like I could play on. And so it was like, okay, this is big. So I gave it some thought. Thank God Jan was persistent, because every time she'd ask me up front, I'd say no. But the minute I bought my ticket, the magic started happening. All the doors started flying open for me. I had a gentleman come and say, oh my God, because I was really getting into plant communication. I was really feeling the connection to the plant world and the life of the plants. And a voice kept coming to me that was constantly saying, you need to find the frequency that trees give off, for they are the ones that call in the rain. And it was a constant, like once a month I would get this feeding from these trees. And I thought, gosh, well this man comes in and says, there's somebody in Dominaher, Italy. Since you're going to France, it's only like another 1,000 miles, Go visit Dominaher, and because this guy's developed this device that actually creates music from trees. And I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. So I started looking into studying that, and so I developed my trip in 10 days. It was this magical 10 days, and I had very little finance, and so the tickets came in half price. Car prices, for rental car came in half price. I missed my exact date to be at Dominaher, which was scheduled to be with a huge group from England, and I missed it, so I got a private tour, completely individual to most magical places in Dominaher, because I was there while she was working. And it was just like, just the magic happened in those kinds of ways energetically that let me know that I was on the right path. And what I'm saying here is that we all have the tendency to say no all the time. No, we can't. No, and so many things keep us in the no place. But these cosmic energies are telling you, and these doors are opening constantly for you to take that step. For there's magic in every step that you don't take. But you have to choose which doors you want to enter, which path you want to take. And I just heard you today say, I'm being called to go to France. And I'm going, there you go, because I felt the same after that happened. So upon my arrival, I was very nervous, for this guy never left California. I went to Hawaii once, I think, so I had a little bit of flight experience, but that was just very short. So it was a huge thing for me to pack up and know what to bring, and I had to ask a lot of questions and really investigate a lot to try and ease my mind into this. So when I got there, I had to grab a train and go to Toulouse, and I had to meet up, and the train bypassed Toulouse and went somewhere else, and so I had to take another train and come back, and Jan met me here, and it was like, and then the car broke down, as we're going, and so all this other energy was keeping us from getting back to our destination again. We met up with the rest of the group, and I got a good night's sleep, and the next morning I woke up, and to knocking on the door, and breakfast was ready, and so we went down to have breakfast at this place we were staying, because we had to leave early. And I didn't know what was going on. I'm just here to hold energy. I'm in France now. I'm like free, and it feels so good to be in a different place. And it was just powerful for me to be somewhere else besides California. And so, having breakfast, I'm sitting next to her guide, and she's talking, and she speaks French and Dutch and all this stuff, but her English is kind of broken a little bit. So I'm interested in the accent, and I'm listening to her, but I keep saying, like I know her. For some reason, I just there's something about her is familiar. And I'm not understanding what's going on inside, so I'm just kind of going with it. And so we're talking, and pretty soon she says, you seem so familiar. And I said, so do you. And so we couldn't quite put a finger on what it was. We just kind of went with that too. So this whole trip was, we had an 1.5-hour drive to go to this little town of Pirellius. And I'm probably not even pronouncing it right, because my French is horrible, but Pirellius is the closest I can get to it. And it was built like 2,500 years ago, and it's pretty much destroyed. There's a few pieces of rubble there, and they're trying to restore it now. And it took us a time to get there. It was foggy, spring, it was early May, And so, you know, all the wildflowers are out, and they have red poppies. I was so amazed at the red poppies. Oh my God, just all across the land. It was so beautiful at that time of the year. And so, as we're approaching, I'm starting to feel like sick to my stomach. I think, oh, well, the breakfast maybe, something's not right here. I don't know. And pretty soon it started getting worse. And you know, and they're just chatting away, talking in the car, and we're trying to get there. And she goes up this road and she makes this turn. I says, no, we got to go straight. And I said, well, how do I know that? You know, and she's looking at me, our Lowe's, our guide, and she's going like, what, you know, I'm sure it's this way. So she turned, and of course we got lost. We had to come back, and we had to go straight.
Wow.
And I thought, whoa. So as we started going straight and getting up the top of this hill, and it's foggy, you know, it's got this lowland fog coming in the morning, and we come to the top of this hill, and we're probably 4,000 feet elevation. We're really climbing up the top of these mountains to get up here on this mountaintop. And as we approach, I just said, oh my God, stop the car. And I'm just like, I feel like I'm gonna throw up, and I'm bawling, I'm crying, I'm just weeping, and I just get out on the ground, and I'm crawling on my hands and knees. And I crawl over to this planes tree that's standing there. And I just climb up, I just grab this tree in a hole, I just hanging onto it. I'm going, God, what's happening to me? And they're like worried, like he's gonna throw up or something, he had a bad breakfast. They didn't know what was going on with me either. And I turned around after calling myself, and I said, Lila, come here, I want to show you a well over here. She started crying. For her name wasn't Lila, it was Lowe's, and I called her Lila, something she only heard when she was a little girl, and have given it up for a long time. And I thought, oh my God, what is this? Whatever your name is, come over here, I want to show you a well. And she says, no, there's no well over here, the well's over here. You know, this is where the hand-dug well is. And I says, no, there's a well over here. And we pushed the grass away, and there was a well.
Whoa.
We moved the cover out of the well. I got down in it. I splashed my head. I drank the water. I just immersed myself in this water. For I knew in that part of my life, in the studying I've been doing, that water carries memory, carries full memory of past life, full life, or whoever who lived in that area will get full memory back. And so I drank the water, and it reacted with me, and I just all of a sudden started having these visions. And I'm going, my God, Lil, I said, you were here with me. I was a boy. I was like 12 years old, you know, and you were like 16 or 17, and we played in these meadows. This was like, you know, we were here, and we came over on a boat from, oh my God. And I started backing up and just going, we came in on a boat, and Lazarus was there. And Mary Magdalene was there, and Joseph of Arimathea was there, and a few other people were there, and I'm just going, this is mind-blowing. Well, Jan's like going, okay, you know, whoa, what's happening here? And so I'm like sitting down and holding myself, and I'm just going, this is crazy. And I said, we did ceremonies here, so many ceremonies. This cave is so rich. It was a sanctuary. We lived there. The people would come from all around to watch her do sacred ceremonies and give initiations. It was an important place. And we were brought in when we landed on shore by the gypsies. And I had this phenomenal connection with the Gypsy Festival, the Roma Fest that happens here, local.
Yeah.
For years before that, and Shawnee and I just hit it off, and I was in love with the guy. I wanted to help him all the time and be in there. I didn't know what was going on with that and why I was so connected to the gypsy energy and that whole thing, but it just like came back to me, oh my God, these guys were like the first Lemurians. They like never had a home to land. They never had home. They started off in India and just wandered and wandered and wandered and rejected everywhere they went, but ended up, you know, all over the place and still rejected even today. And so I had a connection with them, and so they saved us. They were there on shore, and they said, the Romans are after you. We will take you high. And this is where we ended up. And it must have been several years we stayed there before we were finally found. For the next vision I had was carrying a vessel of water on my shoulder from that well to the house in which I lived, which was several hundred yards away. And as I was carrying this vessel, which I did every day, this Roman soldier came over the hill at me, and he had a spear, and he was going to kill me. And I was 12 years old, and I just grabbed this vessel of water, threw it at him, turned, and I ran for the cave, my home of sanctuary. And when I did, I felt a spear in my back, and I hit the ground. But I looked back, and it was my father.
Oh.
Another betrayal.
Oh my gosh.
So it was like, whoa, big. So I'm sitting there, and we're all crying now. Everybody's in this, oh my God, place, you know. And so I said, oh my goodness. I said, Lila, come with me. I'm going to walk with you up this hill. And so we held hands, and we walked up this little mountain knoll, just up beyond where I remembered throwing the vessel. And I started digging with a stick as I was talking, and all of a sudden shards were coming up, pottery shards of things, pottery shards right there, which I filled my suitcase with and brought back and created a mosaic of the shards from the pottery that I broke in a lifetime.
Wow.
What place? What's the name of this place in France?
Pirellius.
Yes.
And I'm probably not pronouncing it right, but it's semi like that.
Yeah, I got some of Jan's flyers about the trips to France, but I don't know.
Yeah, it was one of the places we were going to. I mean, that was just one of the many places, and that was the one that, the first place when I landed in France, the first place I visited, and that's what took me down. That was the energy. I had to see that. And this is the doors that opened for me, you know, and so the weight that lifted from my shoulders after experiencing that, and I believe me, I was so scared to talk to anybody about it except the small group that was there witnessing this shocking development that was going on with me, because nobody would believe me. And I felt like, how arrogant of me to think that I came on a boat with Mary Magdalene and I was with these people. And I mean, you know, everybody thinks they're and I'm just going, this is not, you know, so I can't talk to many people about this. It was really hard for me to even bring it out, because I'm not a special person in that sense, except I'm a light for others, you know, to follow the same path. We all have this. We all are part of this same picture. I was going to add something to that. I'm kind of drawing a blank. So, the pottery shards I found, and we were heading to find the cave, which I hadn't been in at this point, because this was all happening within an hour of just being on the ground by that tree, by the well, and all of this within a couple hundred yards area. And the cave was still up over the next ridge on this limestone mountain. And so we're heading to this limestone mountain, Lila keeps taking, you know, these right-hand turns, and I keep going, no, it's left. It's left. It's left. And it was really hilarious, because she started believing me. And we would find it, and it was right there. And it was just amazing. So we get to the top of this. We get to the top of this rock in this entrance, and it's a very small hole going in this one direction. Very small opening. And it's covered with trees and bushes and the lichen, orange lichen all over the limestone. It was just this magical place, and I was just feeling this energy of, I've returned, you know, I'm back. And from that point on, and I have to say, from that morning, I never wore shoes the whole trip, for I wanted to feel all the earthing energies from my feet, and I was just walking around barefoot all the time. Cuts, scrapes, bruises, sliced toes, splinters, but at that moment when I was standing in front of the cave, the rocks were heating up so hot that I couldn't even stand on them. There was just this heat kept coming from the ground, kept raising, and she was feeling it too, Lila. Nobody else, but just the two of us were kind of feeling this heat energy coming up from these rocks. And so as we got in, we were able to feel hot and cold with our feet. And it was amazing how the energy was coming through us. I was so open. I was so vulnerable. It was this magic that was just like, I'm just going with it. You know, I'm not going to question anything. I'm just going with this. It's just every moment seems to open more and more of this blossoming life. So I'm in this cave, and it's just this football-sized cave inside. It's huge.
Football stadium size?
Like a football field. It's just amazing inside area with stalactites, stalagmites, and there's diggings. You can see where people have dug looking for artifacts, because it was really important at that time. And people, you know, the locals knew it, but not very many people went there. So you just see the locals, and it was just, so we went down there and had a big fire pit down there, and so we did a small fire, we smudged and we toned and did all this sacred work for, they were trying to birth Sarah and trying to speak to, and contact Lazarus and do some work on the grid lines, which I was all new to at this time, so I was working into that and feeling this. So I was just, here's my place where I was holding space. And while they were doing their work. And so I found that very amazing, very touching, and very energetic, and I was really a part of that. It felt great. And from that point on, we went to Rennes-le-Château, and that's probably the most famous. Most people have heard of that, because that's the Mary Magdalene chambers, and I think that was all doctored up, as far as I'm concerned, by the secret societies, because that's just where they put all their images. Sage, outside, please, honey. Thank you. It's okay, you can hear too.
Don't be me.
But very, very magical place too. And so we went, we stayed at this, at the place down below it where Tom Kenyon is part of. He actually lives there. He actually bought a part of this little section of this home that's there now. And so we actually met him and saw him there. He was there, but his wife was protective and just kind of rushed him off, you know, because he's overworked all the time. He needed some quiet space. So we got to meet some very interesting people there, and the storm was brewing and coming in. This is the second part of what we all have capability of doing, and I just want to give this little spiel, and then I'll be kind of wrapping it up. This storm was coming in, and I felt this, it was like a really interesting storm, and I wanted to be out in it. So, and it was light rain, but it was spring, and it was so beautiful, but the clouds and the rustling and the wind was so intense. It was like, and Lilith said, I'm not going out there. This is dark storm, I can feel the energy, I'm not going. But I was like going, I gotta go out here. So Jan brought her harp, and we went up barefoot, and we took off, went to the top of the hill, and it's pouring down rain on us at this time. So we're just getting soaking wet. Well, as we crossed the little bridge across the creek, this black snake comes through, and she just screams and goes, ISIS, you know, because that happened earlier to us as we entered the cave. A black snake came through, and Isis was there as well. And she was really, and I'm going, okay, Isis. I was getting all this information, and so I later found out what all the symbology behind those things, and the power within them. They're all signs of you're on the right path, you're doing the right things. They're crossing to show you your divine energy, and all this stuff is happening to you at this moment. And so we get to the top of the hill, and I just close my eyes, and she's toning, singing, playing her harp, and I'm kind of toning, and I'm just playing with my hands, and I have my head down, and I'm just going like this. And this is all I was doing. And all of a sudden I hear, oh my God, and I open my eyes and like, what? And we weren't getting wet, but the storm was all around us. And it was raining, you could see the rain hitting all around us, but it wasn't. As soon as I put my attention on it, we all got wet again. And I thought, whoa, this is big. And I said, that my first thought is I'm just a normal Joe. This can't be happening to me. Everyone has this power. Everyone has this ability to do this. I didn't believe it at first, and so we went back into it, and sure enough, it was happening again. And so I came back with a great story on that one. So as on my trip to Dominaher, because the next day I left, and some other stuff happened and was great and powerful, but as I left and headed for Dominaher, I stopped in Nice, down by the water in the ocean. It was like 6 a.m. and nobody was there, and I walked down there on myself. I'm going to meditate and see this water. But as I was walking, I felt like 2-foot thick layer of just dark energy. All the wars, all the battles, all the people still left there from all of this darkness. And I've been told these stories that Europe is full of this, where it's never been cleared, they've never gone to the other side. They're still hanging around. All these entities and dark energy of battles are still roaming helplessly in these areas, and I was feeling it. I was wading through it. That's how open I was, and didn't realize it until later that I was walking through this, and I could feel them. And so I was sending this vortex of energy. That's what we learned later, is just taking the swastika and spinning the swastika backwards, its original direction that was done by the Lemurians and other cultures, would spin it and release this energy. you know, and take it in another direction. So we were doing this work, and so I sat on this rock and I just started my parting the cloud. I'm going to put a hole in this cloud above me, and I was meditating for like 20 minutes, and I just kept going as the sky was darkening, and I just kept going, and I looked up when I was finished meditating, and there was a huge hole above me, and the clouds were all around me, and I said, that's it. I am God. And off I went. I got in my car and I headed to, you know, Italy, all the back roads. Couldn't speak a word of Italian or French, but by sign language and all the wonderful countrymen, I just found my way, and it was this magical journey. I was a day late getting there to Damanhur, and as I got there, they said, oh, you're gonna have to put you up. There's nobody there. So the place was vacant. I had the whole boarding house to myself, and washed my clothes and had a great sleep, and I walked out to the to meditate that evening. When I got there, it was just dusk, and this big giant pathway of this Atlantean like style pillars and walkways going up to this ceremonial space, and I just saw this and went, and I just walked to it, and I walked past this giant crystal, and I put my arms around it and I held it. And I'm just holding this big, giant crystal on this mount. And I walk up in the bleachers and I sit down and pick 2 figs off the tree. And I'm starting to eat these beautiful figs and rest. And I'm going to meditate right here. And this Italian woman comes out of a door and goes, and I said, I don't understand. I speak English. I'm sorry. And I went back to meditation. And about 10 minutes later, a gentleman came up there, spoke some English, and said, you have to leave now. You're in a very sacred spot. This controls all of our synchronic lines that come into the mountain. This is only the highest priestess and priestess get to be here. And I'm going, well, that's why I was called to be here. I'm here. But I had to walk away and meditate somewhere else. The next morning, my guide, who had this whole line of work to do, this chore that she had to do, and says, well, I'm your guide, and she was from San Francisco originally, and was there. Her name was Shama, and she goes, oh, you're the one, I heard about you. Everyone's heard about you that's walked into that area. And so later on I found out why, because it was very big to them, because underground in the caverns, they're hooked up. The synchronic lines are the information grids that they're different than the ley lines or other lines that we have. The synchronic lines are information lines, and they only float so far above the earth, but they're the grid that we gain all information from. This is how, I can think of building a car, and across the other side of the world somebody else does it exactly the same time, and a car is being created at the same time. And this is how most of that technology was built at that, because these lines carry that information, and we can pick up with deep thought, meditation, and focus on all of this information, and that's what they do. And they just bring it in, and they condense it, and they use it. I got to go into a room there that was filled with chairs, and there's Sufik. They call it Sufik. I think it's Sufik is the right pronunciation of energy. And Roberto, the founder, Falco's they all take on animal names, so Falco's his animal name. Had developed or seen in his meditations how to draw these Sufik patterns, and all it is like wiring, and it's just so intricate and so intense. It's got silver, copper, gold, and all this wire interacted, and it creates an electronic grid for your body. They have necklaces, jewelry, bracelets, clothing that you wear, that they wear and they sell that have this grid on it. All of his art has some of this grid, and so does the cave that they developed, this big temple underground in the mountain. And so it was just amazing to me to see this. But this room I went in, there were like 3 people strapped in these devices, these beds that were crystals lined all around them, interjected with wires and Sufik grids, and they were gone. There was people monitoring them on computers and all kinds of screening, but they were gone. They were traveling. They were astro traveling. They were gone.
Selfic, S-E-L-F-I-C.
I think it's
Selfic.
Selfic. I have it in one of the books, but I may be pronouncing it a little bit differently. So I just got some magical tour there and able to see, the reasons why they had this massive energy and the followings they do with the Atlantean followings. They really are Atlantean-based thinkers and doers with their creations. It's just like blew me away. So And I got to stay with the trees and the tree people, and they built their tree houses up in the trees, and they don't touch ground. There's catwalks going to main houses, and they all live in satellite houses, and they all speak to the trees, and it's part of their journey. So I met, let me see, lizard and chameleon. And chameleon is what was the inventor of this device, and it pretty much follows behind Cleve Baxter's device, and is able to sense plant life like a biofeedback. And so it's a very unique device. And so I spent some time there, and he saw my passion, and he sent me home with one that he just had rebuilt, an older first generation device. And so I was tickled pink, and that's another whole story altogether. So that is part of my journey, and with that I came back with free weight off my shoulders of the fear of death. I had no fear of death whatsoever from that point on, because seeing, I always believed in reincarnation, but that was a validation beyond belief. And that just showed me that, we are so eternal that it's just amazing. It's just, it is one and the same. And my father, he passed last year. And I was able to be there and hold him for his last breath. And that was big for me. And he never let go, he never confessed, he never said he was sorry, but I still forgave him in that sense. And it was a magical time for me to let go of that wound and that higher connection of contract that we had for all those lifetimes was settled,
Did you
And
have any sense of his spirit once he left his
yes, I was
body?
just going to say, I was visited a couple times, and it was very soon after his death. In fact, he tried to infiltrate, and I just said, out of here. No way, you are not welcome here. I said, your journey's elsewhere now. You've had enough time with me, and I really sent him out. And he's never come back. I've never felt his energy again since then, but I just absolutely just read him the riot act and just, out of here. You have to go pay for your bad deeds now. You just go take care of those, clean up your act. We're done. So that was very powerful for me to be able to do that. In ceremony and drum for him, all night while he was in a coma, watching him hear the drum. I saw he could hear it, but he couldn't say. He was just, and it was just interesting to hold that space and to be there with that. I went back to France for 999 because I was there in the May of '09. And I went back to France to spend the night in that cave on 999 by myself, and I did. Went back with another whole group of people. That when I got back, the Isis priestess group, I'll remember her name in a bit. I can't remember the founder's name, but she was doing readings, and Jan had told her, and many people told her about what happened to me, experience. So she called me and wanted to do a reading on me. So she did a reading, and I was David, 12 years old, and she kind of confirmed all this. And when I came back from France, I made that symbol up there above us, the two hearts with the Star of David, where I carry the 666 energy, and that is the Solomon seal. And so when she transcribed this, the man who transcribed it lived in Geneva, France, and that's Edward, my soul father. Because when he saw that, he said, "Oh my God," he said, "you and I have to meet, we have to talk, and we have to, go there again. We have to be in this, because I also hold this same seal." And so we're so connected now. That's where I get a lot of my great emails too, is we really pass through a lot of phenomenal stuff. So we went back and did the same thing, and it was just amazing to be able to hold that energy with him again and make these lifelong connections. And changed my life forever. Ever, ever, ever.
Beautiful.
Comes from here now, purely from here. Yeah, at all levels. So, if anything, it's to say yes. Say yes next time you're confronted with something that you're not sure about. Look at it deeply, and just, if it resonates, just say yes. Stop saying no to yourself.
Just say yes.
Just say yes. Because the
Sounds like a
magic
campaign.
happens the moment you do. And I can testify.
It's interesting when you were saying being at the ocean in Nice and feeling sort of the density of souls, because I had that same experience. First, I was also in Nice, but first happened for me, I was in Saint Tropez. It was off season, so it's like a little sleepy fishing village at that time. And I could feel the density of souls. It's like the air is thick.
Yeah.
And I went to an old cemetery there. It's beautiful, and so many of the gravestones are from World War I and World War II people, but I could just I know what you said about that.
Mm.
It's like the air is thick there with the density of souls.
Yeah, I knew exactly what I was in when I entered it. It just like came to me. It's like, oh my God, these people they're just confused. They just don't know where to go. They're stuck between dimensions. They just are stuck here. Yeah.
So the
So-
existed karma for the living must be intense.
Yeah.
So Spruce has some slides of that trip.
Yes, yes.
And just a couple dozen.
Just a few slides, and I'll
So-
just kind of just put a picture to my words.
Yeah.